Hello everyone and welcome back to the Keep Productive YouTube channel. It is Francesco here, and today we're very lucky to be joined by Daniel Eckler. Now, me and Daniel were just talking, I was just getting to know him. Camille from the Notion team actually recommended that I definitely get in touch with him after asking her some of the tools that I wanted to sort of get involved in the YouTube channel, more tools, more interesting setups of Notion, and apparently Daniel's blows everyone away. So I'm excited to dive into his Notion. Daniel, please do introduce yourself and a bit about your work.
Yeah, hi, Daniel Eckler. Founded and sold a few consumer technology companies, have spent my career kind of at the intersection of technology and art and design and culture. So the first company I founded was a blog network for men's fashion and lifestyle. Grew to 5 million readers a year, pictures of jackets and shoes and all sorts of stuff like that. We quickly learned that we had positioned it as a magazine, but no one wanted to read what we were writing. They just wanted to see the pictures. And we took that insight and said, why don't we form a community that enables anyone to curate images and form community around that. So essentially Pinterest before Pinterest was called Pixie. Sold the previous company, built up Pixie to 35 million visitors a year, did the whole VC circuit. Eventually Pinterest did launch, got enormous. Tumblr was number 2. So kind of automated Pixie, sold that off. Spent some time in the marketing industry at Anomaly and BuzzFeed. Really just realizing that what I love to do most is just come up with ideas. Having run companies and focused on one idea for 10 years, as opposed to in the marketing world, you get to do 5 ideas a day, was really, really exciting transition for me and is kind of informing the work that I'm doing today. So yeah, kind of in a transition period right now, thinking about what to do next and probably taking all the lessons I've learned from the technology world and marketing world to help other people come up with cool viral ideas to promote their businesses.
Fantastic. And Camille particularly what like mentioned your creative brainstorming process, and I think that will obviously, from all of the learnings from those previous businesses, be able to reflect in the Notion. A question about Notion. How did you discover Notion and why did you go about choosing it? Because I think sometimes there's a lot of modular apps out there, but why did you decide to go with this one?
Sure. Yeah, a friend, designer developer named Corey Gibbons referred it to me. We share a lot of the same brain and interests, and I took his reference with a lot of weight. That said, I still didn't try it for 6 months, which I very much regret. I'd encourage anyone today, if you're watching this and have not yet used Notion, to at least dive in and play around and see if it's for you. It's the best tool I've ever used in my life. I'm obsessed with it. The primary reason that I use it is most of my work is kind of research and thinking and writing and organizing, and I've not found a tool that's even close to Notion to allow me to do all those things. It's fast and minimal and simple, and as you mentioned, modular, allows me to kind of organize things in exactly the way I want. It's just been, I can't even imagine a life without it now.
Definitely, yeah. I'm the same. Like, you can't go back, can you? It's even harder. Well, I will pass over to you, Daniel, because you're going to give us a little bit of a tour of your account. So let's jump in if you're up for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Lovely. Hopefully, I've done the right sharing settings. Oh, there we go. That works great.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm going to just put you up here. I spend most of my day in these 2 windows. So the right window is kind of like my to-do list. I have some meetings, meeting with you, meetings later today, some things I want to do, as well as just like a scratch pad. So, I put some stuff that I want to take you through today. But throughout the day, I'll just be typing random stuff in here. And always just using it as just a place to organize my thoughts. And then on the other side, this is kind of a broader to-do list, bigger projects. So actually, you know what? Before we go there, let's jump to maybe another pin tab. So every morning I do like a little morning routine thing, And you'll notice here, like this, and this are all different Notion tabs that I use for different tasks. So half of my pin tabs are Notion. And to your ask earlier, like, why do you like it? It's primarily for that reason. If I could have all of my workflow be in Notion, I'd be a very happy person. But yeah, so just every morning I kind of reflect and revisit kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing. As I mentioned earlier, like creating ideas and connected experience is really important to me, helping other people do the same, and really pursuing, like a person shared with me, this idea of ideaphoria, just chasing ideas, new ideas, as opposed to, stuff like money and fame. I have other stuff in here too, like I have my meditation and yoga, just different stuff that I do throughout the day, just keeps me grounded in the morning.
And out of curiosity on that vision area, so did you go about designing that in a separate application and then upload it as an image, right?
That's right. Yeah, if I could do it in Notion, if there were some, simple image editing tools, that would be awesome, and maybe one day there will be.
Yeah, that's it.
But at the meantime, yeah, this is just an upload. Yeah, I guess just to see the workspaces. So doing things, you've seen that's over here. In progress, I'll dig into a bit later. This is kind of like a flow for the work that I'm doing right now. So maybe starting with strategy. I'll also use Notion kind of as a wiki to just keep track of ideas and share those with other people. So the company I'm working on right now is called Space Cadet. And the vision is to create other connected companies. And so the problem that we're trying to solve is, like, innovation's increasing and companies are having a hard time trying to keep up. And we believe that, human progress is informed by experimentation and velocity. The more experiments you do, the faster you do them, the more likely you'll get a win. And, I won't go too deep into this, but just using this as kind of an informative reminder, in the same way that the vision board reminds me personally what to focus on, this helps remind me, but also other people within the company, what we're doing and why.
Fantastic.
And then that kind of leads into actual tasks coming out of that. So every quarter at the top here, I'll put like the 3 big tasks. So, continuing self-exploration, whether that's meditation or reading, working on launching Space Cadet, and helping inspire ideas. And this just helps as an anchor to create new tasks and ensure they're laddering up to a broader vision and broader, bigger goals. Every 2 weeks, I'll do like a little sprint to ensure that, I'm focused on the right stuff. So that just loads into like a process whereby, I run through some things that have been happening in the past while and if they've been working and what I should focus on next. Those will turn into tasks that are here, or I'll pull them from previous tasks. So you can see, like, there's a bunch of tasks here. For example, laddering up to inspiring ideas. I'll do some work here as well, right? This is more of a scratch pad. These actually, like, I'll actually do work within these. So, like, I do a weekly newsletter for creative technology. These are just a bunch of, things that I'm going to be posting in the near future. Just keeping notes and bookmarks in here. Or, a bigger project might be something like, we're trying to come up with something viral to launch and share the agency with the world. So we're coming up with this idea of Face to Famous. It's just a prototype. You can see in a moment my face will appear. And then over the course of a few different seconds, it'll take me through different celebrities all the way to looking like Alicia Silverstone. So again, just using these just as actual work, like doing actual work within these tasks. So yeah, I guess when it comes, back to focused on the actual brainstorming part of those ideas, to actually come up with that idea, I think is the area that you'd probably like to focus on in more depth. So prior to coming up with an idea like Face to Famous, I'll spend a bunch of time brainstorming. And so traditionally, I'll create a new project. I have a template for those projects. And maybe I'll pop that over here. And then this is quite extensive, but I'll go through it fast and then slow. Essentially, this is just a series of prompts and resources to help me be creative and help me be strategic. So you can see it's quite long. There's a lot going on, but we'll go through it a bit more slowly. So I'll traditionally use this new project template in conjunction with the work on the left. So this is almost like a process to focus on the different things that you see on the left there. So for example, well, actually broader to put it, we use this thing called double diamond.
Okay.
Which is just a framework for coming up with ideas. So that the stuff on the left is kind of like strategy, the stuff on the right is creative. So if you have a problem and you start by kind of diverging and coming up with lots of different ideas, exploring as much of it as you can, doing a bunch of research, and then you kind of consolidate that research into different insights or opportunity areas. And then you isolate like a few big opportunity areas and then use those as launching pads to be creative. So ideate a bunch of ideas coming out of those respective, this is a how might we, this is a standard thing in technology. So yeah, we use this process, and then loosely, this takes you through that process. So you can see here, this is like the discovery phase, and you work through what I've called bursts. And so maybe you start with breaking down the brief. So I have an example of that. When we came up with that face thing that I showed you earlier, the brief was oriented around something called synthetic media. So I don't know if your viewers are terribly familiar with all the deepfake stuff going on, like FaceApp turning you into an old person, that kind of stuff. I've been really excited by that. So we thought, how might we use personal inputs to generate synthetic media that people want to share? And use that with that double diamond to really blow it out and come up with a bunch of stuff. So for example, one of those things is to break down that brief. And you can see, we have the inputs. So personal inputs is one of the things that we can break down. What are different personal inputs that people could use? Voice, text, photo. What's different media that they could generate? Something on Alexa, photo. Where might they share? How can we encourage them to share? Maybe there's a celebrity route. Often it'll go way deeper than this, but obviously it'd be too much of a mess to share. So just wanted to give a quick look as to what one of these things looks like when it gets broken out a little bit. But yeah, essentially I'll go through these different tool sets to do research, to find inspiration. Often they'll have like a header, but then different prompts within them. Or sometimes they'll actually have resources inside. Yeah, I feel like this is as organized as it might look, it's actually also a bit of a mess. So I'm happy to keep going unless you want to pause.
One of the questions I had there was, it's really interesting how you've sort of gone about making something that you already know about the double diamond process and sort of creating it into an area. So am I guessing that this flash area with the bursts are, that's like static information, and then you create a new row in the table every time you do a part of the process?
Got it.
Inside of that doing things area, right?
Yeah, so this stays static, this area on the left, but on the right, I'll use this process as a scratch pad to start, I'll break it down over here,
Got it. Yeah.
To start taking all sorts of notes and whatever I come up with. And I'll bounce around too. It's not as oriented as it looks. I'll bounce from one part to the other, and however my mind's working. It's more just the things on the left act as a reminder to bounce to other things if I've forgotten.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, and is it, so the first part of the process is bursts, but then does it expand into more stuff?
Yeah, that's right. So after you've done the bursts and built out, this part of the process, I'll leave this open maybe. Bursts is kind of this part of the process. You've thought through it a bunch, expanded it. Maybe then you look at what's come out of all the bursts, refine those things into more things that people can understand as opposed to messy notes that I'm just taking. And then coming out of that, you're going to start being creative. So That's what we call sparks. So there's much more resource here.
Wow.
And what I've essentially done is pulled from other creative frameworks to create versions of my own. So there's a very popular creative framework called Scamper, and you can see it here: substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to other uses, eliminate, rearrange. So I've taken Scamper and put it in these prompts, but also added sub-prompts to each thing. So maybe you could substitute a place or a person or an emotion. And then this was both to educate myself and other people as to this framework, but also to serve as a reference tool. I've also put thumbnails that correspond to each of the respective prompts to show you an example of that creativity or creative prompt in use. So to make this more clear, because obviously these thumbnails are a bit too small for people to see, an example of substituting place is this project where a person, sorry, an ad agency, can we open it up? No. There we go. So this is a project whereby they put this tooth into a person's mouth so that they could open beer with their mouth. And that would be an example of substituting place, right? Usually the place that happens is on a beer opener. That should be in your hand, not in your mouth. It would be funny if it's in your mouth. So all of these prompts correspond to different ways to be creative, and then all of these images are references for those respective things to both educate people that aren't familiar and to serve as a reminder. And go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, this is really interesting because I think, like, particularly myself, and I know a few other people, they don't like formalize their process and make it like a wiki experience like you have, where each time you go and replicate something, you can go back to that original resource. So even with your sort of sprint planning with the 2 weeks, I really like the way that, I think I'm going to definitely steal that concept of sort of having a full checklist or a full availability of it and then actually just replicating it. Because yeah, I like the way that you're using pins as well to sort of, work alongside your Notion already. It's really good.
Totally. And to your point, I think, especially with the creative process, a lot of people don't want to make that process driven and kind of want to let their mind go a little bit crazy and see what comes out of it. And I do that too. This serves more as a reminder to do things that maybe I forgot in my organic process, or I'll bounce around to different parts of it depending on how I'm feeling. So maybe another example would be, this is sorted by, this is sorted by different types of creative problems that you might have. So if you have an advertising problem, these are all, there's a website called Deck of Brilliance that has 52 prompts to come up with advertising ideas. And I've essentially pulled that in here and made it a little bit more concise. So if I have an advertising problem, I just go through these 52 prompts and see which one might be most applicable to resolve that creative problem. So I don't always use everything, and sometimes I use nothing, but broadly it helps as a tool set to be creative if you're feeling stuck. Here's another good one. Just a random idea, connect random inspiration. So there's a bunch of resources in here, one of which is a random word generator. So if I'm feeling stuck, and often creative ideas come from places that are not traditional or linear, I'll force myself to take that brief, something like this, and make whatever random word association comes up fit with this idea. And so that'll make come up with random ideas that you otherwise wouldn't.
Okay, that's quite interesting. And how long would you say that it took you to set up this catalog?
I mean, it's not something I did in a sitting. It's certain parts of it have come over time. For example, I started with the advertising thing, and then later I added the strategy. And I mean, if I had to quantify how much time I actually spent all in, I don't know, 100 hours is just a loose estimate. But again,
but that time's sort of saved, isn't it, now that you've done it?
oh, for sure. I mean, traditionally in advertising, let's take as an example, just one creative project, the conception part of it could take 40 hours. What I've done here is help myself make that take 10 hours instead of 40. So I'm saving 30 each week. That 100 gets made up real quickly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff here. So yeah, let's see. Actually, we'll move on maybe. So another thing that happens within advertising and elsewhere is you're often rooting something in what they call a big idea. And that big idea can manifest itself in different channels. So let's take that tooth that we looked at as an example. That's a product, but there's also PR, and maybe there's an advertisement associated with it, and maybe there's some out-of-home thing where the guy's sitting on a curb and showing and opening people's beer at a bar. It can live in a bunch of different places. And what this area does is help you, once you have that big idea, to orient yourself as to which channels it should predominantly live in. So, should it be an app? Should it be on a billboard? Should there be a blimp that's associated with it? And then all of those are sorted by, does it drive awareness? Does it drive acquisition? Does it drive conversion? Does it drive retention? So that if you have a particular problem that you're trying to solve, you can sort and determine the channels that are best associated to blow out your idea.
Sure. And out of curiosity, since you've been using this, how many sort of ideas and sort of projects have you been working on?
Sure. So this channel area is quite new, and I actually haven't used it yet at all. But this top area, these two in particular, I've probably ran through 30, 40, 50, but no more, probably hundreds of projects using these tools.
Fantastic. And to continue talking us through.
Sure. Yeah, the last area that's in here is kind of a reference tool. So I use this as essentially like a Pinterest bookmarking stuff that is inspiration for the creative process. Very well sorted. So for example, what you're looking at right now is the same creative project to come up with that face connector. These are all just emerging, stunty, viral, emerging technology ideas. So, this is an AI painting that made a new Rembrandt using AI, or this is an influencer who's made with CGI, or this is AI making 7 million versions of Nutella packaging. So tons and tons and tons of creative inspiration here, so that when I get a project, I can sort by whatever I think the most applicable thing to do is. Let's see. So this is done by media and channel. There's websites, and there's experiential, and there's video and social and PR. So depending on the project I get, I'll look at a different category and look for inspiration related to that to help spark new ideas.
So it's you're almost like your brain bank of all of those ideas for when it comes to it. Yeah, exactly. That's really nice. Yeah, I quite like that it's visual as well, that you can find everything you need there. And going back to the sort of the doing things area that you sort of manage every day, is it? I think I saw on there that you had evening routines and things like that. Do you actively use it for work and sort of your own life?
Yeah, I use Notion for both. So a good example is I just moved to New York. I have not yet memorized my phone number. So when people ask, it's here. Or I'm waiting on a shipment of books from Amazon, or, here's places that maybe I want to travel to. More broadly, I keep some of my more personal stuff down here. So like people that I want to stay in touch with, or general reference. But yeah, I use Notion both for personal and for business extensively.
Fantastic. Well, sorry, it went a bit with then. Well, Daniel, I really appreciate you taking us through that sort of ideation process and all of those banks that you've created. Where can everyone find you after this call?
Yeah, check out danielecler.com. It's got links to everything I'm doing on the internet. Daniel_Eckler at Twitter, I'm quite active on. If you're interested in the company I'm working on, haven't yet launched, but you can go to spacecadet.nyc to learn a bit more about that. And yeah, if I can help at all, I think one thing that you'd asked in the email is how might other people create creative processes for themselves. I'm also happy to share access to this if anyone wants to duplicate it and use it for their own purposes. Or if anyone else has any questions about how they might set up a creative process, I'm happy to talk to people about that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll grab that link from you and we'll share it in the description. But I appreciate you taking the time out, and it's given me a lot of hints for my own day-to-day use of Notion. So thank you. And I look forward to sharing this one.
Amazing. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Daniel. And talk soon, yeah?
Take care.